Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, members, and welcome to the Grounds and Environmental Services Committee meeting, Monday the 10th of March. Start off first of all by apologies for absence, and I've got here Councillor Jonathan Tamara, Councillor Robert Blennerhassett and Councillor Kenton Gurney. And that's all we're aware of. I don't think we've heard anything more. The next point for the agenda is declarations of interests. If anyone's got any particular declaration of interests on the agenda that they know about, please let us know now. Otherwise, as and when we get to the point in question, please make us aware. Thank you very much. Going on to the next agenda point, which I think has been inadvertently missed here, but there is members of the public is a normal part of the agenda there for question times, and we do have a couple of members that come along to this evening to ask a question. So we've made sure we put that on the earlier part of the agenda, so you don't have to listen to the whole committee meeting if you don't want to, but the choice is yours, of course. Yeah. But it's always welcome to have you know, residents come along and to show an interest and a passion for their areas and to raise things. So thank you very much for coming along. Yeah. Would you like to express your questions?
All right, I'll carry on sitting. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. I have a concern about the two pedestrian gates into Kingsbury Park that actually access onto Dunes Way. Neither of these gates have what I would call a return spring. That's in my head a type of mechanism, but you know, correct or incorrect. But basically, they literally just open and shut if people decide to do it. Often I walk my dog there and I see the gates left open, and I do witness people coming through the gates often, just not bothering to shut them. I've shouted at some people to ask them if they would close the gates. I sort of get a vacant stare at me usually. The gates open onto a busy road, and although it's a 20-mile-an-hour speed limit, we know that it's rarely kept to. And I'm aware of at least one dog that has got out and has been knocked over by a vehicle. I don't want to wait for that to be a child to be injured before these gates are made safer. I've heard that possibly that the idea of return spring could be a safety issue. I don't know. That's ridiculous in my head, because if you can't ensure the gates closed, why bother having gates? You might as well just not bother to have gates at all. Gates access the gates that access the bus link have return mechanism on them, and it's fitted onto both gates, both sides of the bus link, because I would say that's considered as a safety issue. If they can be fitted to the gates of the bus link, then I cannot see why we don't have them on Kingsbury Park. Whilst discussing the main pedestrian gates, the gates into the play area could also do with the closing mechanism fitted, because I often see them left open, and although I'm a dog owner, my dogs are relatively well behaved, I often see loose dogs and they wander in there. And the last thing, the idea is that those children play in an area that dogs can go into and mess. You know, that's just unacceptable. So I welcome the council approving safety mechanism to all the gates. I did actually take a photograph the other day. It's obviously not, I haven't got it here. We were up there at Hopper Street, gate wide open, and I go over and close it. It's a common thing, and I just hope that that I can get support from yourselves in this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for taking the time bringing that to raise that. I think Head of Grounds is probably best to give an answer on that. So over to you, Crawley.
Okay, I'll just catch the lady's name. Sorry,
Susan Swan.
Susan Swan. Okay, thank you, Susan. Yes, I've given this some thought. So I look back at consultation we did quite recently with regard to the management plans that we're preparing for a number of our recreation grounds, and something very similar has been said in the consultation. And actually that's got your name against it. So we've already captured this as something that we need to possibly consider. We are working on those management plans now, and we will be presenting those management plans to this committee. And within those management plans, there will be some action plans about things that we could possibly do in the future, taking account of some of the consultation points that have been raised through the consultation exercise that was undertaken. And members will recall we're doing a consultation with each recreation ground. We're doing 3 a year, and Kingsbury was done kind of last year, and we're working on the management plan now. So there's absolutely no reason why we couldn't consider this as a long-term, as a slightly longer term objective. When I say longer term, I mean in the shortest term possible. So we might have an action plan that's got, I don't know, things that we might do in the first year, things that we might do in the third year, things we might do in the fifth year, and things that might be aspirational for the future. And that's the sort of thing. We're going to be bringing that to the June committee for a decision and agreement on that action plan. So we're already aware of the suggestion. And as I say, the name ties in with that that's on the consultation. So thank you for responding to
Thank you very much
on that. It isn't straightforward necessarily, because it might not be a straight modification of the gate that we've got there. The gates have handles on them at the moment, and in order to close the gate, you actually have to physically turn the handle and put it on the latch and close, a bit like you would with a door. With the self-closing gate, you've got to have a different mechanism and a different handle, a different latch arrangement. You've also got to make sure, because people live nearby, and we have had this in the past, that the gate doesn't bang when it shuts, because that can be an irritation to people as well, especially if they live next door. So I've got to try and find the best solution to the suggestion, and then understand what the cost implications are. It may be 2 brand new gates. I don't know. It may be they are quite tall gates. The ones on the playground and the ones on the busway are much lower, shorter gates, which kind of lend themselves.
They don't bang either. They're just.
Oh, that's right. And so I might need to find out who supplied those and whether or not we can. So it is something worthy of consideration. It's not something we can just do immediately. We need to do it carefully. So I think we can investigate that in the run up to presenting that report to you later on in the year. With regard to the play area, it's got 2 self-closing gates on it at the moment, one on either side. One of them shuts. I can see you shaking your head. I was there myself the other day having a look. One of them shuts too quickly, and rather shuts abruptly. If you push it, it will.
Is that the one nearer to the playing field?
That's the one on the playing field side, and that's a slightly different make of gate to the one closest to the playground, which has a different closing mechanism on it.
Which doesn't close.
Which doesn't. It closes to about within 6 inches of the actual post. So I pulled it back, I let it go, it closed, but it didn't close completely. I've had our play fitter have a look at that over the last week. He doesn't think he can repair it, therefore we're going to have to go back to the manufacturer and the installer to see what more we can do to make that happen. But rest assured, we will work on those 2 gates and make those happen. All of our other recreation ground gates generally, all of our other recreation grounds, if they have gates, none of them are self-closing at the moment. Many of our recreation grounds don't have gates, but they do have a barrier on the other side of the gate, on the road side of the gate, to stop you running out and straight across the road. And we've got that at Jean's Way as well. On the road side of the gate that the lady's referring to, there is a barrier outside, so you can't actually run onto the gate. So there is a form of safety mechanism there, but if you're minded to, and a dog won't necessarily stop, but a child may. So there are some features in there already, but certainly we can look at all of this. We'll get those playground gates fixed, and hopefully that will deal with the point.
Thank you very much, sir.
Swans raised.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, John. Thank you. Hopefully that gives you some assurance.
Yes,
that-
yeah.
on that line.
I feel quite positive.
That's right. Okay, thank you. Okay, moving on to the next agenda point here, we've got to agree the minutes of the meeting on the 13th of January as a jury record. Have someone to on that.
Happy to
Okay.
propose that.
Anyone to second it? Thank you very much. Okay, our next item is then to receive the minutes and meetings of the planned subcommittee meetings held on the 13th January, the 3rd of February and the 24th of February. Get through those, so if anyone has any queries, please make them known and we can discuss them further. So first of all, the minutes on the 13th of January. 7. Page 8. Have you got any questions on those? We move on to the meeting on Monday, the 3rd of February. Page 9, 10, 11 of the agenda. For those. Finally, on to the plan subcommittee for Monday, the 24th of February. Pages 12 and 13 of the agenda.
Proposing second, please.
Second verse again. No, not plans. No, not plans. At all. Okay, so we go on to the next agenda item, is the action tracker to receive updates on previous actions. Just quickly going through the tracker. First point is for the allotment land and each ward and recreation ground. As we know, that's part of the plans, which is currently still an ongoing status, which will be updated as when John says it will go through each of the plans and there's something to report on. The town centre planters, now this, although it says it's still ongoing here, and I understand from John that traction is a little bit difficult with CBC, so we may have to review it and see how we go, and potentially make other decisions based on that. But at the moment, we're still an ongoing process, which we're currently tracking. The Green Spaces project, which is the defibrillator in the telephone box. Now there's been a nice update on that, which we're going to have as part of the report, which Kathy's going to take us through a bit later. So we'll be updated on that one. The next one on the agenda, on the tracker there, the salter and gritting. There's been no further updates at present, but I believe that if I last remember that CBC were putting this as part of a bigger review. That's right, John.
Yeah, we're waiting, Chair, for CBC to commence a bit of a review of how they're working with other town and parishes to improve their gritting and salting arrangements. I haven't seen anything from them yet, so I'll be contacting the head of highways to see whether or not there's any further progress on that, so that we can begin to think about some decisions in good time for next winter.
That's okay. Next one on there is for the Pergola CCTV, which I think you have got an update on that one, John.
I do, yes. I have spoken with a number of people. Firstly, I've spoken with the CCTV team at Central Bedfordshire Council to look to see whether there's anywhere within Priory Gardens or the surrounding area where we could relocate the CCTV camera, and there isn't anywhere particularly obvious. The most obvious place, other than its current location, is to put it on the back of Priory House. Priory House is not only a building site, it's also a listed structure at the moment, so it might not be appropriate to do it immediately, and in any event we would need listed building consent in order to put it on there. The best option is to keep the camera exactly where it is on land that we don't own. In the last few days, I've managed to finally get hold of the owner of the former medical centre, and I've asked them whether they can, one, reinstall the electricity supply so that it's up and working again, which they said they would look at. And then we'll discuss with them whether or not we can negotiate a license or a lease to have our CCTV camera on their land going forward, which they may well be amenable to as the new owners. So I'm continuing to pursue that, and I'm hoping that that will come to fruition and that we won't actually have to take it away and move it to another location, because it was chosen as the best location. It remains the best location.
Good, thank you. And I believe there's another update that's going to be added just for members' awareness. I think it's been accidentally left off from the last meeting, is that we, as you know, we requested for a full CCTV review to be looked at across our entire estate to make sure we've got the adequate protections and things in place, which I understand is going to be added to that at a later date, and we're going to have a proper report on it to see where our vulnerabilities, if any, lie and what we can do about them.
When you receive the next action tracker, Chair, it will be slightly longer than the current one. It will include the CCTV, but there were also a couple of others that have not been reported in the papers as well. Would you like me just to go very quickly through those?
Yes, please, John.
Okay, so there was the CCTV one, which the Chair's just mentioned, and we'll make sure that that report comes forward. Bearing in mind, members, that report is for CCTV across the whole of our estate, including our buildings as well. And it might be more appropriate to take it to finance and general purposes in the future because it covers all of our areas, all of our responsibilities. That's something that we can consider internally going forward. I have had some discussion again in the same conversation I had with the CBC CCTV team. I said that. They would be willing to give us some support with that assessment of where we might be able to improve our CCTV coverage across a whole range of areas as well. So that's good news. Councillor Crawley raised an issue about the increase in the budget for bedding plants. I wasn't able to answer the meeting. I did subsequently send him an email. The additional cost is where we have placed the money set aside for the 40th anniversary works associated with this committee to the tune of, I think it was about £7,500. So that explains that question, although I believe you did get a response from me on that by email. There was an issue raised about seasonal parking. Do you know what it was?
There was an issue around parking where the performance and compliance manager was going to talk to CBC about what parking options might be. Obviously, the performance and compliance manager is no longer with us and won't be replaced for several months. What we do know is a lot of the team will be speaking and are speaking regularly to CBC's parking enforcement team to ensure that parking enforcement are ready for new season and issues will be raised with them. Actual parking measures in terms of parking restrictions are for CBC.
Okay, thanks, Paul. Because I understand that we were thinking about putting in seasonal parking around certain times, and I'm just aware, obviously, we're coming into the season where it's going to start to ramp up in the splash park. So it'd be good to try and see something done, sooner rather than later. With the nature of summer coming up, which is going to create a lot of problems, probably for this is when the residents experience the most problems. So could be done.
Just to add that action tracker item, if it was to remain on the action tracker for an action, would then move over to community services, because that's where the Splashside Cafe will now report to in the future. And then the last one was a request from Councillor Katarski about whether we could give residents a little bit more notice about our ward working in with the range service. I need to double check that. I think that's happened, but I need to be absolutely certain. So I will definitely bring an updated item to that on the action tracker next time. Apologies, Chair, that those were missed off the action tracker this time. We'll get that put right ready for next time.
Fine. Okay, so that leads us on to the next agenda item, which is the grounds and information report. First part of that with the Dunstable Cemetery, which I believe that Mary is going to take us through.
So good evening, members. The application for green flag for the cemetery for this year has been submitted, and full judging will take place before the end of June. The grounds team have recently completed the installation of section markers across the whole of the cemetery, and this will assist visitors when coming to the cemetery to be able to locate various graves. The expenditure and income report is attached, and there was a positive variance of 88,000. And then moving on to allotments, there are currently 269 people on the waiting list, which is 15 less than reported in January. And in line with the approved allotment improvement programme, information boards have been placed or erected at Catchenker, Westfield and Meadway. They will initially be used for the council to place notices in there, but we will encourage tenants over the coming months to make use of them as well. Thank you.
Have any questions, members want to raise about that or ask? Thanks for everything.
I've got a comment on green flags. I just want to let you know that we had the Beavers come here on Thursday evening last week on the 6th. Georgia and I gave them a tour of the council building for about an hour and a half. And one of the questions I asked them was whether they knew about the events that we had in our town. And actually a couple of them mentioned about our green spaces having green flags, and they were only little, so they knew that. It was really impressive, and I didn't expect them to raise it, but I just thought it'd be nice for you to know that it is noticed even by our younger
That's good.
citizens. Thank you.
Anyone else have any comments they'd like to ask? Or? No, I will just say, Mary, it's really good that you said about the notice boards, because I was down at the mini sheds having chat with them and having their AGM the other day, and I took a look at the new notice board. Said to John, it's really impressive, and I like the notice that we've got in there now about, you know, the soil and how to look after your soil because it's the richest asset, and how to. It's fantastic advice for any gardening. So really well done. Thank you.
That's also accessible on the website as well, that document.
Thank you. Okay, so that leads us on to the recreation grounds. Sorry, the next sports area and general maintenance. John, I think you're going to take.
Yeah, so we'll do the recreation grounds first, Chair. It says there, since the last report to this committee, there's been no incident of vandalism on play equipment, but I need to report to the members that we did have an incident of arson in Bennett's recreation ground on Saturday or Sunday. I think it was probably Sunday night, where somebody has taken one of the composite picnic tables up against the building, up against the cafe building, has actually set light to it. The intense heat has managed to take the paint off the wall, blackened the wall. It's melted the lighting in the space above, which overhangs the front of the building as well, and has caused a little bit of smoke damage. Now, luckily, the building is still intact and didn't catch light. There is nothing left of the picnic bench at all. So we've had that cleaned up today and removed, and we're going to move the other picnic benches that are sat at the front of the building at least away onto the grass area, so that if somebody does repeat that again, we at least aren't putting the building at any danger. And when I was talking to Councillor Atwell about this earlier on today, he made a very good suggestion, which is, could we pin them down in some way so that they're not easily moved and stacked up against the building, so
Yeah,
they
got
can
some
do more
brackets
damage,
on
which is a fair point. So I'm sad to report that to you, but that is a reality that we face, unfortunately. With regard to playgrounds generally, we've received our independent quarterly inspections. So every quarter we have an independent inspection of our playgrounds. It picks up on things like, if we don't pick them up, it picks up on things like the gates that Susan Swan mentioned earlier on. So that we've got a list of things. There are some medium, there's no high risk or very high risk items. There are a few low risk and some medium risk items. So every quarter we look at that, we take that, that informs our work programme for that quarter effectively, alongside our regular weekly inspections. So that's a piece of work that's ongoing at the moment. With regard to our sports areas, we're regularly marking out the pitches, keeping the changing rooms in reasonable condition, keeping them clean, making those pitches available, taking the bookings. The grounds team have been working extensively over the winter period on doing a lot of hedge trimming and some much needed pruning in some areas. So if any of you have been at Newton Recreation Ground, you'll see quite a lot of pruning having gone on there in recent weeks. We do all that in the winter so that we don't disturb nesting birds during the bird nesting season. And we will be very shortly. In fact, we have actually started cutting the grass in some areas as well. So our grass cutting season seems to get earlier and earlier every year, members, and we that's something that we have to live with, and I suspect that's partly associated with climate change. Our tree contractor has been in and undertaken a number of works in line with our independent survey around risk management. That work is nearing completion now, and our tree inspector will be in again in April to assess that work and to create our next work schedule based on our risk management and our tree survey. The application for green flag for Bennett's is in alongside the one for the cemetery that Mary mentioned earlier. Apologies, I've just noted the typo. I've spelled Bennett's wrong. It should be double T in the first line there. We're doing a number of things to make sure that recreation ground is fit and ready for its judging. We've been working on a number of projects over the last year and particularly the last few months. So we've got the Swan Jewel in there now. We're making some applications for funding for a concrete table, tennis table, a chess table, improvements to the tennis courts, and the possibility of having pickleball marked out at the same time as well on the tennis courts. So there are lots of things going on, and Kathy has been working on an interpretation board for the Swan Jewel, and also for information about why it's called Bennett's around Mr. Benjamin Bennett, who was a former mayor. So there's all that good work going on there. We're continuing with the design work for the roof at Kingsbury Sports Pavilion with regard to putting a new roof on and then going in and refurbishing the changing facilities. And we're still very much in touch with the Bowls Club on their revised plans to relocate to the site. But the timescale is dependent on what happens with their current land that they're on and their landlord's plans for developing that site. But when that comes to fruition, we're in a better place. We've agreed, or in the process of agreeing, heads of terms for the lease in line with the previous decisions that you've made as a committee. I'm happy to take questions on recreation grounds before I move on, if there are any, Chair.
Do we have any? Councillor Redden?
I've got two questions. The first was about the vandalism, the setting fire of the picnic benches. Am I right in thinking that those particular benches are wood?
No, they're a composite recycled material.
But those were fixed to the ground, those ones.
Mm.
That's a real shame.
Mm.
But they're flammable.
But even if they were, whether they were fixed to the ground or not, you could easily set light to them and do what somebody's done there.
Okay, because it happens with the.
But if we move them, we don't want them to be easily moved back to that location to be able to be piled up against the building.
But they wouldn't be fireproof if there was wood or composite of combustible.
And the other question was with regards to the Swan Jewel. I had heard a rumour, and it probably is only a rumour, but I'd heard a rumour that there have been some vandalism to that in previous weeks. Is that true, or?
We've had a report, Kathy, haven't we, that some people have been climbing on it.
Minor vandalism, but as yet nothing major.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
So we might need to do a tiny bit of spot welding on the point where the foot of the swan is the base plate that it's attached to. So we are aware of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, is there any other comments from the other members? I've just got one question. It's also around the Swan Jewel again, John. Do we have, does it have a QR code attached to it, or if it hasn't, can it do so? So, because I'm pretty sure it'd be good interest for people to know the history, because I'm not so sure how many people do.
So the Swan Jewel is one of several installations around the town which will form part of a trail.
Right,
So they're all going to have plaques put on them and links to the trail.
brilliant.
So at some point we're going to install that for the whole piece of land.
Okay, good.
But on the interpretation panel that we put in for Benjamin Bennett and Bennett's recreation ground, we've set aside half of that space about the history of the Swan Jewel. And there's a nice piece of artwork going in there to show that. So even if you don't have access to a QR code, there is a little bit of extra information about the Swan Jewel.
Councillor Jones?
Just to go back to the situation in Bennett's over the weekend, I think it was possibly Saturday, John, because reports started coming through on social media on Sunday. So it's possibly Saturday night. I'm just I am a little bit concerned that if we have a good summer, we've already had one arson and it's not even like nights. We're not even at that point yet. So the CCTV cameras that we've got on the splash park, I know there's a question mark whether they're actually working or not. We need to look into this, and I think that park and that camera needs to be urgently repaired, and if it's not working, should be working, because we can't afford to have damage in that park. It's our big park of the town and it's highly populated, and it would just, the amount of anger on social media about what's happened over the weekend, but in true support of the work that's being done and all of the facilities, the events that's being put on, all in favour of the town council and its activities. Let's try and stop it from happening again and see if we can get that camera working quicker than anything else.
That's a very good point. And even if the inevitable does happen, at least we'll have the evidence to.
Exactly.
That's a good point. Councillor Eden?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just on that point, is there any other prevention method that we could utilise? I don't know, like PIR, security lighting or something, if it's happening at night, because I don't think that area is lit, is it? But if we could approach the area, maybe if it was.
So the whole length of the footpath is lit.
Oh,
The
it
whole
is
length
lit.
of the footpath from Bullpond Lane to Cainswood Road is already lit. So of all the places in the park, that's the lightest point there. There are 5 or 6 columns along that path.
Okay, thank you.
Do you have any other further questions from members at all?
Ms. Karen? Oh, sorry.
Sorry, just before we move on, I think also it'd be a good idea to discuss earlier, just give the members a quick update regarding the bins situation of how they're being allocated out and where we are with an update on that. Just-
Yes, so members, you agreed the installation of additional bins and spends associated with that, and the removal of all the dog bins because ordinary bins can be used for dog waste. We employed contractors to come in and actually install them between the period January through to March. Those have all now gone in, and we're just double checking to make sure they've all had a sticker on. I found one the other day that didn't have a sticker on, and that's now been dealt with. The stickers say that you could put your dog waste in as well. We've done some publicity and promotion on that. It's been fairly well received. I think we had one spare bin left, and then we had a request to put an additional bin at Menmore over and above the number that you'd agreed to have in there generally. That's now, I understand, been added as well. Fairly short notice. So that work is actually complete.
Yeah, that came from the back of a member's comment. Residents at one of the surgery open meetings the other day. So that was very quickly put in. It's been well received, so that's great. I think, it's a good point there, John, is that, the eyes and the ears are in the room. So if you do see of any bins or it hasn't got the stickers on now, I'm sure that John would appreciate anybody sort of tipping him off and letting him know. It's always worthwhile a lot easier for him also to do so. Okay. If there's no other questions on that point, then we'll move on to the next point.
So town centre gardens, town centre garden areas, so that largely relates to Priory, Gravehouse Gardens and anything that we do in the town centre around the management of some of the landscape features. Extensive pruning going on, extensive weeding going on. We're feeding all and pruning the plants in the planters in the town centre. We do a lot of work manually in these spaces. We don't use herbicides because that's part of our green flag management strategy. And it's something that's actively encouraged by the Keep Britain Tidy team who manage the green flag. Floral displays are being regularly looked after. We continue to overmark the Priory meadow, and it's just general routine maintenance over the winter period. There's nothing particularly special to report, although Kathy will come on to the pergola later on in her report. With regard to the town rangers, we're systematically working through on a mixture of see it sorted, see it, they'll do it, or it's reported. So just to remind members, they see things, they do things. They get things reported to them by lots of means, particularly Facebook, and they try to deal with as many of those as they can or at least signpost others who are responsible for those things to ask them to intervene as well. And that work is going well, and they go regularly through all of the wards, and I think you all see the regular Facebook work that they're doing. So very well received service, I think, for the public. In preparation for the splash park opening in May, the rangers have been out doing a lot of the washing down of the splash pad, which we do on a regular basis, trying to keep that clean and tidy. And the rangers will be taking on some responsibility for managing the water treatment apparatus and doing the setup and clear down at the end of every day in the back wash as well, as part of our new arrangements for managing the splash park and the splash cafe. Happy to take any questions on those two. Further than that.
Thank you, John. Does anyone have any questions that would like to raise or query John on that?
Chair, I've got one.
Okay, Councillor Kowalski.
Yeah, good evening all. John, it's just to say that the lights, street lights through Grove Gardens heading towards Grove Theatre, I was told that they'd been working again from CBC, but when we came back from the theatre the other night, they're still out again. So I don't know if it's a timing issue or if there's still a fault with those lights.
Okay, Chair, I can report that back to CBC, that they do look after the lights. They're their lights and their responsibility, but they're on our land. So we regularly liaise with them when there's an issue.
Yeah.
I'll just pick up the phone or send an email to the relevant individual to see what the situation is. I know they were out for some time. We are very reliant on CBC making those repairs and understanding what the issue is. So whether there's a longer term issue, I don't know, but I can certainly report that, Councillor Kowalski.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Councillor Kowalski, for raising that, and thanks to John for taking it up. It is in a very important part of our park, and I noticed myself as well with Councillor Kowalski that it's prominent there, particularly for when ladies and things walk through there at night time. It feels a bit, not so nice. So it would be quite a priority concern for me for that to be sorted. Thank you, Councillor Reardon.
Thank you, Chair. Just on the point of lights, thanks, Nick. You just reminded me, somebody in Dunstable East reported via Facebook the other day that the lights in Ashton Square car park are on all day during the day and have been for quite a while. I did direct them to the CBC councillor for that particular part of the town. However, I wonder if we're mentioning lights in Grove Gardens, if we could mention the lights that are on during the day in Ashton Square car park at the same time.
I can certainly include that within the email, Chair. Have we got, is it all the lights or is it just specific individual lights?
The big tall lights, I think it's all of them in the car park. I think what they're called.
I can certainly pass that on.
I think it's the tall LED arrays.
Like floodlights,
Yeah.
they are.
What I will do is I will report it to the street lighting team, but not all lights are looked after by the street lighting team. Sometimes they're looked after by the assets team who are responsible for car parks. So I have to kind of feed it in and then let them decide where they need to put it to get it fixed from there. Whether or not CBC council can also do that as well, that would be very useful.
Based on that, Councillor Hegley has already taken it up, that lighting. She's been dealing with the lighting situation in Ashton Square for some weeks and months, because at one point there was nothing in Ashton Square either. It was pitch black at 5 o'clock at night. So she is actively working on lighting.
Thanks for that. Just before we move on as well, what you mentioned there, the town rangers, John, really like to pass back my thanks, and I'm sure everyone around the table would congratulate them. They do a fantastic job. I think the most important thing is that see it, sort it, just to see it and get it fixed and just get it done, rather than walking around with clipboard saying this needs doing, that needs doing, and then 3 weeks later someone may or may not turn up and do it. It's a great approach. It works really well, and it gets great positive feedback from people. So please pass that back to the team.
I shall certainly pass that on, Chair.
Okay, go on to Green Spaces project, which I believe Kathy's going to cover.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, members. Excuse me, the Priory Gardens pergola project, the manufacturing drawings for the pergola have now been approved to include 2 new QR codes, which were requested by members. So they'll be positioned 1 at each entrance of the pergola. And the pergola is actually now in manufacture, in production. And we're expecting that installation will happen on the week commencing the 7th of April. Once the works are complete, there will be an opening ceremony to celebrate the project and the many people that have been involved in making the project happen. And I will keep you updated about that opening. The Church Street phone box project, a specialist contractor has now been appointed, and we look forward to works commencing to restore the phone box the week commencing the 24th of March. Councillor Jones has been successful in securing sponsorship from local businesses to fund the street planter that we intend to position next to the phone box. And that will, once that has been planted, it will be maintained by members of Dunstable in Bloom. And going on to Dunstable in Bloom, this year Dunstable in Bloom are again working very closely with council officers, and Dunstable in Bloom have chosen their theme for this year, which is Blooming Together on Life's Journey. Last year's Anglia in Bloom campaign, the Anglia in Bloom judges were particularly impressed by the strong community spirit that we have here in Dunstable. And this year marks the 16th year of participation from Dunstable into Anglia in Bloom. And we just feel that it's a valuable opportunity to showcase and raise awareness of all the wonderful green space projects that we have within the town. Any comments or questions?
I've got a strange question, actually. I received an email at work asking if I could support Dunstable in Bloom. And I just wondered, it wasn't a name that I recognised, and I just wondered who was dealing with looking for fundraising for Dunstable in Bloom, because it's just by chance, actually, I happen to be the mayor. But also I work with this organisation as a totally separate entity. Yeah, it was just a bit of a strange one. And I wondered if we might be able to look into that. Should I speak to Councillor Jones about that? No? Kathy?
Well, John is currently the chair, or standing in as chair for Dunstable in Bloom. So if there's an inquiry, they can forward it to John, or they can forward it to me, and I can
Speak to one of us.
Yeah.
We can work. I think I might know something about it, so I can speak to you after the meeting.
All right.
You can get a name. I think if we tie 2 names together, I think we'll know what we're talking about.
Excellent. Okay, thank you.
Just I might do a lot of fundraising, but I don't do everything. But Dunstable in Bloom has been heavily sponsored this year by 10 different organisations across our town, and they will sponsor in individual categories of this year's competition. So, which is the first time ever Dunstable in Bloom's had such an immense amount of sponsorship. So each of the winners of the categories will go away with a small gift, as well as their certificate and trophy, as will the runners up this year for the first time.
Great, thank you for the update. Thank you.
Can I follow up, please? Thank you. Just as a follow up on that. So with the 6.3, the phone box, Councillor Jones has been successful in securing sponsorship. Like, well done. Honestly, that's just amazing that you do so much. Is that on behalf of In Bloom okay.
So the phone box is a town council project. At the Dunstable in Bloom meeting, which I'm a member of Dunstable in Bloom as a resident of, I offered to go out and get some sponsorship. I'm not on it as a councillor, Dunstable in Bloom, I'm on it as a resident. So I offered to try and go and seek some sponsorship, which I approached. Well, Dunstable in Bloom put out a quest, didn't they, on their Facebook page. And from that, I had 5 or 6 different organisations come to me quite rapidly, all throwing money at me to help and support the project. So it's just been reported that I've done it as councillor, but it's not. I've been done
Oh,
with my own name.
excellent. Oh, brilliant. Well done.
Well, regardless of that, thank you. It's still a great
I
effort.
suppose just one other thing on that phone box project, we have requested via Royal Mail, I've emailed them for the post box to be painted at the same time as the renovation work, so that when we have our nice new phone box and the planter, the post box doesn't really embarrass us.
Yeah.
So I've asked for that to be done as well. Whether it is or not, I don't know. At the very least, I was hoping John will get the Rangers to at least wash the post box down. This is worst case scenario. Yeah.
No, I know that, you know, Kathy's done some extensive work with this, with the phone box and things. I have heard that, you know, some people are saying, well, why did it take so long? If anyone asks you that, they really do know to understand. Obviously, it's not, the phone box is something you just can't take indoors. It's a very heavy thing. It's going to be repaired in situ. It requires 10 degrees of outside ambient temperatures for the paints to set, things like that as well. So there is a degree of, you know, technical aspects around that as well that needs to be understood. So it's going to be well worth waiting for. I'm sure it's really a proud moment for us all. But thank you very much, Kathy, for that and for the pagoda work that you do as well. It doesn't go unnoticed, so really appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, has anyone else got any other further questions at all on anything before we move on to the next agenda points? Okay, that just brings us then for reports from outside organisations. I don't know if Councillor Katarski, would you like to give the update on this, or would you like me to read out what you sent me?
I'll let you read it out because it's buried
Okay.
somewhere in my windows.
Okay. So in reply to that, the attendance was not required for planning purposes. Councillors were sent a report of Nick's attendance at the CDC presentations of the proposed budget to parish towns and councils, which she's done. So that's the update on that one. So that more or less brings us to the point of ending that particular reports. I would just like to add at this stage, as this is my last committee meeting chairing the GS Communities meeting, that to pass on my thanks to John, Kathy, Mary and all members of the team. I think you've done a fantastic job with everything you've done so far. Thank you for all your support, my year of chairmanship, and you know, it's been an absolute pleasure working with you. It really has. And many congratulations for all the successes that you've achieved in this year. It's been a proud moment for me to be part of that as well. So thank you very much. Okay, so that leads us on to the last item in recommending in the terms of Schedule 12A for the Local Government Act. The following items will be listed for disclosed exemption information relating to establishment and contractual matters. It is therefore recommended that pursuant to the provisions of the Public Bodies Administration to the Meetings Act 1960, the public and press be excluded. So I'd like to propose that we now go into confidential. Lots of interest. So, yeah, can I just have a vote on those in favour, please? Okay. It's unanimous.
Chairman, I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to leave because I brought Susan's one here.
Yeah.
She'll be excluded.
Yeah.
So I'm going to leave now.